Hi everyone. It's been a minute since I've talked into a microphone, but today I am feeling extremely opinionated. And so, thanks in part to a Twitter poll I ran earlier today, I am going to be tackling the subject of my personal Top 10 Underrated Sumitomo Tracks. Now, I'm limiting this list specifically to tracks that don't get enough appreciation. So, for instance, I love... But it's not going to be on this list because everybody loves that track. So today we're listing only things that I think everybody should love just as much as that track. So without further ado, let's get to it. Number 10. At number 10 we've got Aim for the Top. If this track doesn't make you think of a feisty Saiyan lady who likes chicken legs, then what are you doing with your life? Not only is this track underrated by fans, it's also underrated by the actual showrunners themselves. They dropped this hot, hard as rock, makes me want to rub my tummy piece of music right there and never touched it again. Like, be honest, put yourselves in their position. Imagine you hear this, and think to yourself, yeah, I'm gonna use that once, and then never again. I really like this track, but it earned its place at number 10 because while it's not a super popular track, still there's people that like it, so number 10 it goes. Number 9. It's time for number 9, and number 9 is Reviving Majin Buu. Again, this is lower on the list because there are a lot of people that really like this track, but I don't think it gets enough credit. This track is so good. It's like if sandpaper was music and also sandpaper was evil. They brought this track back quite a bit in Super nearer to the end, and it got a lot of love, but oh man, I just feel like this is one of those tracks that everybody should be playing on loop just for the rest of their life anytime they're thinking a bad thought. Number 8. Carrying on, we've got Infinite Universe. If you're looking for a piece of music that elicits wonder and majesty, look no further than this track, and it does it better than maybe anything in the history of the universe. The actual track itself is at least 60% of just build-up and not a lot of noise, but once it does get to the meat, it's a climax. I know, as a person who replaces soundtrack music here and on Twitter all the time, there's probably about 1,000 moments just in Dragon Ball Super alone that I could just slap this track right in there and it would just be elevated to levels of wonder like no other. Number 7. Next up, Dream Tag Match. This is one of those pieces that played a lot during the Tournament of Power, so it kind of almost got to that level of oversaturation, but it can't. It's too good to oversaturate. It's a great fight track on its own, but when it kicks into this bit right here, it really takes on a whole new form. It's hard to describe, honestly, and believe me, I've tried, but I don't know, it just sort of takes on a duality of tone, if that makes any sense. Once that harmony line kicks in, there's something about the tone that is just both extremely hopeful and extremely unhopeful. You don't know what's gonna happen, and that's something that's really hard to convey in music. Usually you have a track and it signals the good guy is going to do something good, or the bad guy is doing something bad. And this just, it doesn't. It's in a weird middle area that's hard to explain, but it's so good. Not to mention, it's Sumitomo coming in with a fight track with lots of horns and interesting percussion and all of that stuff. Just something to quiet the haters who don't like Sumitomo's synthesizer. All in all, I rated a 7 out of 10 on this list. Number 6. Hi, so this is actually the track that made me want to do this video. When the Tournament of Power arc rolled around, Sumitomo did a lot of Limit Break X Survivor mixes, just shoving that motif on a lot of things. Usually it was something relatively relaxed, sometimes it was something a little adventurous, but this one's different. Not only is that beautiful boy's horn front and center and just as sweet as it can be, not only does the back half of the track have a flute that just slides on in and runs its finger across my shoulder, but the percussion track is so good. Oh man, It doesn't sound like much initially, but take my word for it, it's a pretty neat little addition. A lot of soundtrack tracks just kind of have a very standard backbeat to it, but this one doesn't. Sumitomo didn't have to do this to us, but he did, because he loves us. Number 5. Alright, cool. Hope you're ready to talk about Counterpoint, because I am, and it's time to talk about it. If you don't know what Counterpoint is, then it's this, and it'd be like this. But the short gist of it is, the harmony line, instead of just following along with the main melody line, does its own thing. It's its own melody, but it works together and makes one cohesive sound. And just, he does it in this track, and boy, do he do it. As is customary with music this good, let us just take a moment and listen. Number 4. So, do you remember about 2 tracks ago when I mentioned Sumitomo putting in a rhythm track that he didn't have to, but it was good? This is that again. Here's Jaco as Pop It, Lock It, and Polka Dot It Spicy. That drum track is so good that Sumitomo brought it back more or less for the Broli soundtrack. That drum track is so good it'll make your deaf mother tattoo herself a new set of ears. Number 3. Ooh girl, top 3, here we go. Unnatural Power String version. Rolls right off the tongue. This is actually an unreleased track, and that is proof that it's underappreciated because they didn't even appreciate it enough to release it. The beginning of this track is so dirty and grimy, and it needs to take a shower, and a bath, and a bubble bath, and clean itself up, but it doesn't. It owns the griminess. And just when you think you understand what's going on, the strings kick in and recontextualize everything. Earlier I was talking about how reviving Majin Buu is so good and evil and sinister, and this is just that times 2, honestly. Such interesting textures and rhythm and instrumentation and everything rolled up with this is just a really unique track that just dominates whatever scene it's in. It grabs you hold by your little boy panties and just sits you down and tells you to listen to it because something's going on and it's time to listen. Number 2. For number 2, I'm sneaking on all the way back over to the Battle of Gods soundtrack. I don't know if you all remember the bit where Goku's floating near dead in space and he gives up for Beerus in the movie. I do, and I remember it only because of this track. I'm gonna be honest, I could go on about the million things that makes this track so good and memorable and pure and amazing, but I feel like if you just listen to it, you really get all of that. It doesn't take a lot of technical mumbo-jumbo or explanation. This is easily one of the best pieces of music that Sumitomo has ever written for Dragon Ball, in my opinion. And I think it should be held up on a pedestal about 100 million feet higher than it currently is at the moment. This track right here is why I believed in Sumitomo from the minute I met him. I didn't meet him, but like when I watched the movie, I knew that he was the real stuff, you know? Number 1. Alright, this list has been longer than any of my other lists, mainly because I've only had one list before now. But still, this is it's been a good time. Let's get a drum roll for number 1. And it is Precious Comrades. Who would have guessed it? Anybody that follows me on Twitter or knows me at all. This track needs to be protected by the entire universe. It is so precious. This track is so good, and I know I just said on the last one that I wasn't going to go on about everything that makes it good, but I'm going to for this one because it's that good. Let's make a bullet list. A, that guitar lead in. B, the second guitar lead in. C, a trumpeted lead that reminds me of all of the times earlier in Super where the homies were chillin'. D, that rhythm section. It's not too boring. It's not too complex. It's the Goldilocks of rhythm sections. E. I realized that it was the porridge that was just right and not Goldilocks. F. That key change. When I first heard it when the soundtrack came out, it blew off my pants. G. It's so underrated that it was only played twice, I think. That's not a lot. That's nowhere near enough. It needs to be like twice times, like 8. In conclusion, Precious Comrades is really great, and from the very first time that I heard it, I thought it was so amazing that I learned how to play it on the guitar and the bass, and never heard anyone talk about how amazing it was on Twitter, and never heard anyone complain about how it never really showed up again except for one time, and yeah, I really like it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed my list. It is, of course, completely subjective, but I mean, to be honest, who's gonna challenge my opinion? No one. If you feel brave enough to challenge my opinion, feel free to do so in the comment section, or at me on Twitter, or if you see me walking around in town. Do you all want to hear more of what I think? Was this already too much and you hope you never hear from me again? Let me know. I don't know how to end this, so I'm gonna roll the credits music now. Thank you.